Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome to tonight's stream where we are going to be covering some massive breaking news from the world of F1, which is confirmation from the FIA that the Red Bull team and also the Aston Martin team have breached the cost cap regulations. We'll get more so into that in a moment. Great to see all of you here for what is a big stream covering this news. But not only are we going to get into that and looking at some tweets from Chris Medland, who is I'd say the best journalist, F1 journalist at reporting confirmed news and doing it in a, quick manner as well. And we'll get into, when we get into the looking at this situation, the possible punishments for, most importantly, Red Bull, and also where Red Bull may have overspent. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. And then after that and all, me reading through all of your comments, which I'm sure will take a bit of time because I know plenty of you guys will want to have your say, and we will get into that. We'll also get into the Pierre Gasly tractor incident. We'll get into that later in the stream. And I will get into the confusion around Max Verstappen winning the championship yesterday and get into the exact pair of rules that the FIA used to give him the world championship yesterday, because we assumed he would only get half points, or that the entire field would only get half points, but that wasn't the case. But I hope all you guys are doing well, no matter what time it is in your part of the world, no matter where you're from. Hope you're all doing well. And yeah, in a moment, we'll get straight into this breaking news. I just want to say, though, for everyone who is commenting on the chat, and even, the certain person who's put a super chat in, I will get to those once I finish my bit here. So, yeah, just give me, say, I don't know how many minutes, 20, 30 minutes to get through it. Because firstly, we need to get into the tweets from Chris Medland, where he, in a brilliant way, as he normally does, lays out, the breaking news and does it in a very good way. So I'm just quickly get it up on my screen. And hold on, let me just find it quickly. And then I'll show it on screen for you guys. And right. So here we go. So this was 2 hours ago when it was officially confirmed about this whole cost cap analysis. So the teams found in compliance: Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Williams and Haas. The teams in procedural breach were Aston Martin. Aston Martin, though, did not go over with the overspend. So in terms of complying from that standpoint, Aston Martin are fine, but teams in procedural and minor overspend breach is Red Bull. So, yeah, let's now get into some of this and get into what the FIA had to say. And this is what they said. The FIA Cost Cap Administration is currently determining the appropriate course of action to be taken under the financial regulations with respect to Aston Martin and Red Bull, and further information will be communicated in compliance with the regulations. And then they go on to say procedural breaches can result in financial penalties and or minor sporting penalties in case of aggravating factors, as detailed in the financial regulation. Minor overspend breach, which is 5% over of what the cost cap is, or 5% off the cost cap, but again over, can result in financial penalties and or minor sporting penalties. Now, if you're wondering what is considered a minor overspend breach, it's anything between, I don't know, anything, obviously over the breach up until, I think, $7.25 million, which is £5.75 million. Just so, you guys who maybe work in pounds like me know what the absolute limit is for the minor overspend. So it could be anything in between that range. But if I just quickly back up from these tweets and go to this one, this is a very important one very important tweet to read out because it gives us something to really think about with this whole situation. So penalty-wise, a minor overspend breach will either lead to an accepted breach agreement between the FIA and Red Bull that will be published. If you're wondering what that is, or not what it is, but if you're wondering how that looks like, Williams entered one, I believe, with the FIA back in April, I think it was, and that was because Williams, I think, were late in filing their records or whatever you call it. I think that's what that was with Williams and the FIA back earlier in the season. And then goes on to say, if Red Bull doesn't agree with the settlement or the cost cap administration chooses, the cost cap adjudication panel will decide. So yeah, we will see in what way this goes. But yeah, anything between, I don't know, $1, I guess you could say, and $7.25 million, somewhere in between there is the amount of money Red Bull have gone over with in their overspend. Now, if I quickly get up Red Bull Racing's Twitter, we'll get to a statement from them, which is this, which they published about, 45 minutes after the announcement came, and they said, we note the findings by the FIA of minor overspend breaches of the financial regulations with surprise and disappointment. Our 2021 submission was below the cost cap limit, so we need to carefully review the FIA's findings, as our belief remains that the relevant costs are under the 2021 cost cap amount. Despite the conjecture and positioning of others, there is, of course, a process under the regulations with the FIA, which we will respectfully follow while we consider all the options available to us. Now, in this statement, when they say they are surprised and disappointed, the only way I can think, if they're telling the truth, of course, which so far Red Bull haven't been totally truthful in their public statements, because you remember Christian Horner in Singapore, I think flat out said that Red Bull did not go over the cost cap. So, the Red Bull are not known at the minute to be telling, the absolute truth with what they're saying in regards to this. But the only way I can think that they're surprised is if they forgot that a certain area of your team does count as a part of your, whatever you spend in a year. Maybe they forgot that this certain thing as a part of the team does count towards your overall spend and isn't one of the things that is exempt from the budget cap. Maybe that's what that is, but again, we don't know for sure. And they go on to state that their 2021 submission was below the cost cap limit. I happen to be honest, even though the FIA yesterday and in general are a terrible organisation, I do tend to believe the FIA more so than Red Bull Racing. And in regards to this statement, I'm not necessarily sure they're going to enter into an accepted breach agreement, because they don't sound very accepting of the findings by the FIA. So, I think this might go to the cost cap adjudication panel. Again, sorry if I didn't say that properly. But, I think that might be where this goes. We don't know for sure, how much Red Bull have gone over by. So, let me just quickly, because this has been a popular rumor that has gone around in the last, few hours, that according to Eric van Heren, I think it is, who is a journalist for the Telegraph in Holland, according to him, Red Bull's minor overspend is about 1 to 2 million US dollars. And according to him, from whatever information he's acquired somehow, it is not in terms of car development, but due to the costs such as catering and absenteeism. So, staff absentees and stuff like that due to illness. I would be massively fucking surprised if, let's say it was due to catering and staff absences. I would be massively surprised if it was, that costly. And I don't believe this for a second. I don't believe that, Red Bull went over due to these certain things. And as I'll get into in a moment, I don't believe catering and staff, missing due to illness and, sick pay and that. I don't believe those two things actually fall under the cost cap. I think those two things are exempt, which again, we will get into in a moment. But I don't believe, I really don't believe this at all. Plus as well, I don't know how reliable this Eric guy is, but we do need to remember that, of course, he is Dutch. Now, I'm not going to insinuate that he is, extremely biased or anything, but, we know how partisan the Dutch media is when it comes to their support of Max Verstappen and that. So, yeah, I'm not totally sure about this. But let's now get into, because you may be wondering, if it's a minor breach like they've said, let's get into what the exact punishments could be for what is classed a minor sporting penalty. So it's one of the following: a public reprimand. That would be, I think, unlikely to happen, to be honest. I think they'll go a bit heavier than that. Maybe not properly heavy with their punishment, but I'd be surprised if they went for just a reprimand. The second option is a deduction of Constructors' championship points awarded for the championship that took place within the reported period of the breach. Deduction of Drivers' championship points for, again, the same period, the reporting period that it says there. Suspension from one or more stages of competition. So basically, they would be suspended from one or more races. But again, that might take a long time, though, to actually, that punishment to happen if they were to choose that, because we'll have to see how, how long the FIA take with their panel on that to actually get to a decision as to what the punishment should be. And then the fifth option is limitations on ability to conduct aerodynamic or other testing, and also reduction of the cost cap, I think, is the sixth option. So those are the options up to, the FIA. That's what they have at their, those are the powers they have, I guess you could say. Now, it's hard to say, to be honest, what should be the penalty. And the reason is because we don't know the amount they've spent. Again, it could be as high as 7.25 million US dollars, which would be a disgusting amount of money, that they've overspent. And it would be clearly a massive advantage gained if that's what they had spent. It may only be 4 or 5 million US dollars, which is still a big advantage to have in terms of spending that on what you would presume to be upgrades for the car. But until we actually know, or most likely know, what the amount is they went over by, because again, we've heard 1 or 2 million US dollars, we've heard other figures as well. Until we know what the actual overspend amount is, it's hard to say what the punishment should be, which is really why I'm hoping that the FIA will be transparent and they'll reveal that, because it would be, I think, good if that was revealed. They don't need to reveal, sensitive information, but I think revealing how much they overspent by would be good. But let's now get into, because as I was going into there, the report from that Dutch journalist was catering and staff absentees, I think it was, due to illness. Let's get into the cost cap exemptions, just so you guys know what is exempt from the cost cap. So these are the things, and I'll scroll down to show a couple more as well. These are the exemptions from the cost cap. So driver salaries, the wages of the 3 highest paid staff members, which in Red Bull's case would be obviously Verstappen and Perez for the driver salaries. And then the other 3 highest paid staff members would be Christian Horner, Helmut Marko, and Adrian Newey. I'm pretty sure those would be the 3 there. Travel costs, traveling to the Grand Prix. Marketing spend, obviously Red Bull is a massive marketing giant, so they would be exempt from that. Property and legal costs, which is obviously nothing to do with the performance of the car and team itself. Entry and license fees, your entry fees to get into Formula 1 and to be in Formula 1 each F1 season. One important one to note is when it says any non-F1 or road car activities. And the reason it's important to note this with Red Bull is because you guys may know that Red Bull do a lot of other events at a Grand Prix or even away from a Grand Prix. So some of them are F1 related, but quite a few of them are not F1 related. So that is important to remember because Red Bull, I think, do run quite a load of those activities. But also, parental and sick leave payments are exempt. So, if Red Bull, let's say, they didn't know that, which is possible, maybe they've, failed to account for that being an exemption. But the thing is, I'm trying to think. If that's exempt, then this is why. Actually, I'm just trying to. Sorry, I just got so confused then. So that's why I say, this is what I was trying to say. No, what I was trying to say just then. I don't even know what I was trying to say. So that Dutch journalist, that Eric van Heren, I think it is. That's why I say his report, in my view, is not true at all, because sick leave payments are exempt, and if it's like those payments that have caused Red Bull to go over, then unless the FIA forgot to include it or we're wrong, then, or the journalists that reported this are wrong, by the way, this is an Autosport article, unless they're wrong, Autosport, then it's exempt, so it can't be sick leave or anything like that. And also, exempt is employee bonuses and staff medical benefits. And if I scroll down, just so you guys know when it comes to the power units, engines which are more complex because some teams make their own whilst others buy them are covered by their own set of cost regulations, so they don't necessarily apply to this. But my understanding with this is that anything not related to car performance is exempt. That's my understanding of the exemptions, is anything that is not related to the car performance is exempt. And when you look at all of this, all of it is not relevant to car performance. So also, because it doesn't say here, catering or anything like that, you would assume that would also fall under the exemptions. So maybe there's a bit of confusion over that. I'd be amazed if it's, something like that honestly has caused this. But those are the exemptions, just so you guys know. So it is essentially anything that isn't related to the performance of the car. But again, we don't know the exact amount they've overspent by. But let's say it's like that guy said, the Dutch journalist, $1 to $2 million US. Let's get into the costs of upgrades for what we have in F1 for certain parts. Because if it does turn out, let's say it turns out, and obviously we don't know it at the moment, but let's say it turns out that Red Bull went over by $2 million and all of that went on upgrades for the car either for last year or this year. Because obviously last year they would have been developing, this year's car. Let's get into the costs of upgrades. Now, this is from an article from Automotor and Sport they did back in May, just after the Spanish Grand Prix, where they get into the costs of certain upgrades. And let's just read out this bit here from this article they had, where it's titled, this bit of the article, Teams Keep Lists, and it says, the teams stalk each other to find out what the other is doing. For example, lists are created in which it is precisely specified which new parts the individual teams are bringing to the start in which race. From the small fin on the brake ventilation to the underbody, in the past, interest was limited to technology. You wanted to know what the upgrades brought to lap time in order to better understand the opponent or maybe learn something. Since last year, the teams have been creating a second list. It shows the calculated costs for the individual upgrades. A front wing or an underbody costs 100,000 euros. A rear wing, 65,000 euros. That's not much different at Haas than at Ferrari. And then they go on to say that Barcelona's McLaren upgrade costs 700,000 euros for 2 cars. Now, if you remember back to the Barcelona or the Spanish Grand Prix, McLaren brought a massive upgrade. I think they had 15 new parts. They weren't all big parts. A lot of them were like small little things, really, in the grand scheme of things. But there were a few big things as well. So let's say that, and I'll just do a euro to USD conversion on my on Google on my side a moment. So let's say Red Bull, actually let me do the other way around, USD to euro. So let's say Red Bull spent, let me just do the, say 2000. So, yeah, so if, I'm just going to make sure my calculation is right, sorry. So, yeah, I think that's the correct one. So let's say it's about the same as $2 million US in in terms of the conversion. Sorry, my throat really dying out there. So what I was trying to say is McLaren's upgrade, that big upgrade they brought to the Spanish Grand Prix, which again was worth 700,000 euros for 2 cars. That's one big upgrade, and it was a pretty big upgrade. If, let's say, Red Bull spent $2 million, which would be about the same in euros, 2 million euros, or around about the same, that's 3 big upgrades worth of, worth of development on their side. So that would be, I know $2 million doesn't sound like an absolutely massive overspend. Let's say if that was the amount and it was all going towards development. Yes, it doesn't sound a lot, but when you actually look at how much upgrades and new parts cost, it's massive. It really is massive. Even Lewis Hamilton, I think, was it earlier this week? I think last Grand Prix, he was saying that even if, last year Mercedes spent an extra 500,000, that he could have had a new floor on the car and ended up winning the World Championship without the need of, well, not without the need, but, without having to worry about, FIA race director Michael Massey's intervention in Abu Dhabi. So that would be a massive advantage in Red Bull's favour. So if it turns out that even $1 million US is how much they ever spent by, and it was not due to catering and sick leave, but it was due to, upgrading the car and actually going into the performance of, this year's car, or last year's car. That is, despite it being a minor overspend as classified by the FIA, that is a major advantage in Red Bull's favour. It really, really is. So, what the FIA need to do, I mean, maybe they already know, is obviously find out the exact amount. I mean, they probably know already the exact amount, but find out for sure what it actually went on. And again, if it was development of the car and it was anything over $1 million US, then as far as I'm concerned, there needs to be a significant deduction of at least constructors' title points, and you could argue drivers' title points. But yeah, that's pretty much, I would say, my analysis of the situation so far. Unfortunately, we don't really know much else. And there's not really much else to say. That's all we can really say at the minute, and that's all really I want to say at the minute in regards to my analysis of the situation that I'm sure will keep developing over the next 3-4 weeks. There's only, 6 weeks left, I think, in the F1 season. So I'm sure between now and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, we'll hear quite a bit more in regards to this situation. But it is very important that it is found for sure what the reason was or is for the overspend, because that is absolutely critical to, to the punishment. And if it is proven that Red Bull have spent, 1 million USD or more on car development, whether it's this year's car or last year's car, there needs to be a big punishment. They absolutely have to give them a big punishment if that is the case, because if they don't and they only give them a reprimand and a big fine, then the cost cap is officially dead. It's absolutely dead, because if other teams know they can commit a minor overspend breach, which can be all the way up to 7.25 million US dollars, then they'll just spend the extra money and get away with it, especially if it's worth an extra half a second in track time. So, yeah. This is a vital moment in Formula 1 right now. But guys, let me know in the live chat right now what you think of this whole situation. What is your opinion and thoughts coming from this and what I all, just got into there? Let me know in the chat and I'll get onto your comments in a moment. Just want to say, if anyone new is watching that is, new to the channel, not subscribed, make sure to subscribe for more content like this, because we do Practice 3, qualifying and race watch-alongs, and plenty of other F1 content as well. And for those Practice 3, qualifying and race watch-alongs, we do it from every Grand Prix in 2022. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. For everyone right now who is watching, if you have not already, do not forget to smash that like button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly have a drink of water so my throat can last the rest of the stream and can last, me reading out your comments. Right, so yeah, let's get on to your comments now. What I will start with quickly is a super chat that I received earlier from Ewok from Endor, who's a loyal subscriber and, follower of the channel. And he sent in a super chat, probably I think the biggest one I've ever had, of £25. Thank you very much, mate, for that. I've got to say, that is so generous, especially in these times. And he says, I don't have much money. Get a takeaway on me. Pal, love everything about this channel. You've got me through some hard times the last few years. You deserve it. Mate, honestly, thank you so much for that. And also an honour to help you get through whatever hard times you've had. Obviously, I've had, hard times, last year at times, and especially 2020 was a very hard year for me mentally and personally. So, yeah, thank you so much for that, mate. I really, really do appreciate it. But I'm going to go to the very start of the chat and start reading comments. So make sure, guys, to keep posting the comments, because I will try and get through. I will try and get through as many as I can, as many good ones as I can. I'll read out a few from Ewok that he posted actually before the stream started. I'll try and read from where I think he realised that, what happened, or when it was announced, that Red Bull had officially gone over. He says, I wonder how much of the cost cap breach was paid to Michael Massey. Let's not get into that. D'Angelo Williams says Toto Wolff was telling the truth after all. All I heard was Toto is lying, Mercedes are spreading lies, and all this other stuff. It's funny now that the truth comes to light, where you can guarantee Toto Wolff and Matteo Binotto, they are going to be really hard on the FIA now, pushing for some serious punishment, and I don't blame them whatsoever. But again, we need to know desperately. I think to really make a good, educated analysis or opinion of this whole situation, we desperately need to know how much the overspend was by, which I fear we may never know, which would be a real shame, because then it would be left up to, I guess, conspiracy theory, I guess you could say. Right, let me get into some of the comments here. Ewok says it's rare that cheaters get away with their deceitful ways. I don't understand why Red Bull and Aston Martin think they could, being world-renowned and working at the pinnacle of motorsport. Oh yeah, in regards to Aston Martin, they were only guilty of a procedural breach, which I think is probably the same thing, could be the same thing as what happened with Williams, or it might be something slightly different. But to be honest, I don't think what Aston Martin did was that bad, by the sounds of it. I have actually had someone on Twitter at me in reply to the tweet where I tweeted out, the video was going live on the channel, saying the breach could be when Hamilton took out Verstappen and destroyed his new car, causing Red Bull to spend money to basically build a new car, which wasn't their fault, as another driver destroyed their car. I mean, it could, but I'm pretty sure when the FIA looked at Red Bull's accounts, surely it would have been shown in those accounts. There would have been a difference in what money was put towards damage costs for the cars and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's possible, but we'll have to see. And Ewok also says this kind of news is only negative for F1 and the FIA. Teams cheating like this are not receiving any meaningful punishments, will only drive away future teams and fans from the sport. Yeah, my fear is that they've overspent by at least, say, $1 million, $2 million, and that it's been on car development. And my fear then is that the FIA give them basically a slap on the wrist. That is a big fear of mine, to be honest. Because, like I said, and I've been saying this since Singapore, if that's all they're given, the cost cap is dead. It's absolutely dead. Right, let's start reading out some comments from when I actually went live. Pete Dunn says the FIA must have a well-defined penalty for breaking the cost cap. What is that? Is it 1 point per million? Is it a fine of double the amount that was over? Well, I just went through. Obviously, you posted that, I think, just before I went live. But hopefully I've cleared that up for you now. Will this be, asks Bendover 420, asks, will this be a constructor's blow or driver's blow? Well, it could be either or could be both. So, yeah, who knows? I mean, one thing that's important to say on my behalf is I think it should be a punishment of the constructors' points, because I don't think they should, not label, but they shouldn't tag Max along with this, because it's not Max's fault that this has happened. If there's a clear advantage, clearly proven that Red Bull gained by overspending. Max, yeah, he gained from it, but he is not responsible for it. So in my view, it should be constructors' points being deducted. But one thing I want to make clear when I say that, that's my opinion, and I don't think there is a objectively right or wrong punishment in regards to how many points you deduct and what points you deduct. I don't think there is, again, an objectively right or wrong answer. I think it really comes down to just personal preference. So, let me know in the chat, do you think Max should get a deduction of points for last year or this year, or Red Bull on the constructor side? Let me know in the chat. But again, I just want to make clear that my opinion on that's not an objective right or wrong thing. It's just my personal preference. But I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that think they should both be punished, or Max should be punished individually, or whatever. Turbo says 21 and 22 World Championships and Constructors titles should be stripped. 2023 complete ban, but they can still race. That would be very harsh. I don't think they should go that far, because I think that would only be necessary if it was like a major overspend breach, which would be anything over $7.25 million. So yeah, I don't think that should happen. Red Bull has the best catering. Patrick says catering budget was too much. D'Angelo Williams says a breach is a breach. It doesn't matter how much it is. You breach the cap. Literally, people are getting laid off from these teams in order to beat the cap, and a serious consequence needs to be made. Haribo, I think it is, says it wasn't the Red Bull, it was the vodka they put in that was expensive. Ewok says no matter what the penalty is for the breach, it does set a good precedent for the future of F1, solely because of the way it's been managed by the FIA. Tastic says Red Bull are disgraceful. Blue Flag Alpha says Red Bull is a big cheater. Simon says, did I hear Hamilton say that an extra £300,000 could have won him the title in 2021? Yeah, I think he said that either leading up to this race or last week. I don't think it was £300,000. I think he said 500,000. It might have been 500,000 euros or dollars. I can't remember exactly, but he said something like that. And he said we could have spent that amount and got a new floor and, won the World Championship last year, which is true. They could have overspent by that much and got that. So, it's important. I think the most important thing is to find out or to know what it was, what caused them to overspend. That's the most important thing to know. Obviously, the amount of money they overspent by, matters a lot as well. It really does. But if we know that it went on, improving the car, then for me, it's a, closed case in terms of should it be a lighter punishment or a heavier punishment. For me, it's got to be a heavier punishment if it's proven to be on car development. Haribo says heaviest punishments in history: stripped from Drivers' Championship for a driver punishment, stripped from Constructors, and 100 million fine for Constructors punishment. Yeah, those are the heaviest ones. And he goes on to say never both, indeed. Turbo says, just like when Mercedes broke the regulations in 2019, working in the off-season, those titles should have been stripped also for Hamilton and Merck. The FIA don't have the courage. What breaking of the regulations in 2019? I don't think there was one, unless you mean the DAS system, which that was made illegal, but it wasn't actually illegal at the time. I think it'll come down to a reduction in spending cap and wind tunnel CFD time. This doesn't affect the championship directly, but it is a big indirect penalty. It does, if they do that, it depends on how much they reduce, the spending ability and wind tunnel time. Because if it's only a slight or minor reduction, then it's not going to make a difference, really, is it? Compared to what they've possibly gained. Smashers Creed says, don't forget Hamilton destroyed Verstappen's car and nearly killed him. That Red Bull car was destroyed, so they had to literally build a new car and spend money. Could be the breach, yeah. Let me actually just Google Hamilton Verstappen crash cost. And let me just, Christian Horner says it was $1.8 million. So, and that's 1.3 million pounds, if you're wondering, in pounds. I mean, if it comes out that that's the amount, then I think then it'd be a closed case as to what it was, and I think they wouldn't really get a punishment. Which, if that is why there was an overspend, then I guess that's fair enough. But again, we need to know. I think the reason, again, is the most important thing here. Mario Master says, I too wish the FIA would punish me if I spent too much on lunch. Simon says Latifi must have cost Williams a small fortune last season. Yeah, well, remember, was it Nikita Mazepin as well? I'm surprised Mazepin didn't cause him to go over, to be honest. Turbo says, smash cars, the way the rules are written, are included in the cost cap smashers. For better or worse, it's how the rules are written. They break the rules and the hammer should be dropped. Patrick says, I think the crash at Silverstone in Hungary were expensive. Mercedes should pay those bills. Smashers Creed says, if a car is destroyed by another driver, who was at fault and they had to overspend the money to build a new car, it ain't their fault that they had to overspend. Yeah, that's why I say it's important when it comes to the reason for it, not just for what should their punishment be, in a bad way for Red Bull, but we need to know in regards to, let's say if they decide to go for a minor penalty, which would be like a reprimand and a fine, then, if the reason is, say, that crash or other crashes on top of that, then I think it would be a reasonable punishment, to be honest. But again, we don't know for sure. Let me just show this comment from Robert Perkle. He says, won't be long, they'll have to push the car to meet riding around instead of racing with all you got. BS limit on fuel limit, tyres limit on practice limit SAS. F1 supposed to be ultimate racing. I mean, I think everyone hates the fuel flow thing, but with the tyres, the thing with the tyres is, I mean, the tyres that Pirelli have brought to, Formula 1 in the last few years, I understand why people think they're not great, but let's not act like before Pirelli came in 2011 that we never had tyres that wore out before, and that they were tyres before 2011 that you could literally destroy for 70 laps and they would be fine. Let's not pretend like that's the case or anything. Mario Master says, personally, I think the punishment is that Red Bull have to donate their clearly illegal food to poor teams like Haas. Ewok says both 2021 and 2022 are tainted, unfortunately. Again, it depends on the reason. I mean, if it does turn out they spent, again, a million or more on car development, then yeah, it really does put an asterisk next to last year's championship and this year's. I mean, there's already an asterisk next to Max's championship last year, whether you like it or not, because of the complete terrible mishandling of the rules by Michael Massey, the race director, for last year. But yeah, it would really be bad. But that's why the FIA, if that is the case, they need to come down hard on this. Because you might remember, and there is a clip going around on Twitter of Ross Brawn, I think this was at the press conference where they presented the 2021 regs. Or not 2021, the 2022 regs that, got delayed until 2022. I think he said, that this cost cap thing has teeth. That's what he said. And that, if you go over, you will get a big punishment. So, here's the test, essentially. Let me try and read out some comments from people I haven't read out yet. Prank says it seems like FIA is classifying something within budget that Red Bull isn't. This was always going to come up. Red Bull can't hide cost in other facilities like Merc and Ferrari can. I think there was a thought online that I saw on Twitter that maybe it was due to the Red Bull powertrain division, but yeah, we don't know for sure on that. Haribo says this is a team error in the past. Only the team was punished. 2007 Spygate. But sorry, McLaren got stripped of points. Drivers were okay since they were not at fault. The thing is, if you actually go and listen to Max Mosley's, it was a series on Sky F1 called, I think, Sky Legends, I think it was, where they would interview, legendary, notable people throughout F1's history on the show. And this interview came out, because obviously he's, passed away now, is Max Mosley. But this interview came out, 2015, 2016? And he actually said in that the only reason they kept the drivers' points is not to ruin the end of the championship. It wasn't because, it wasn't necessarily because they, from a right or wrong perspective, think that the drivers' points should have been left out of it. It was actually because they didn't want to ruin the end of the championship, because when the punishment came, there was only 3 races left, and you had a 3-way fight between obviously Hamilton, Alonso, and Raikkonen. It was one of the most, at the time, it was one of the most exciting title fights in F1 history. So, yeah. Right, let me read some other comments here. Frank asks, where is Merck's penalty for working over summer break last year? No team is on the up and up. Were they working during the summer break? I can't remember. I may have seen that last year and just forgotten about it. I'm not sure. Right, let me read out some more comments here. Aryan, I think it is, asks, how and when did this Red Bull overspend thing even start? My guess, it was probably midway through last season. Again, though, I don't know for sure when, but that's my guess, is it was probably just sometime in the middle of last season. Sometime in the summer, maybe end of summer. Right, let me see if I can find some other comments here. Junior says, the cost cap was introduced in 2021 season. I don't understand why people say Ferrari and Merc might have done it before. Shake my head. Arian says, even if it was introduced in 2021, Merc and Ferrari still have spent the most over the years, giving them an upper hand. That is true, but it wasn't supposed to level out the playing field, immediately or anything, because obviously Mercedes and Ferrari would spend like $500 million a year on their F1 team, and obviously they can't do that anymore. And yeah, to start off with, the gap will still be big, but by 2024, 2025, I reckon you'll see definitely the grid closing up from front to back. Turbo says, parts of me knew this was going to happen with the cost cap, but deep down I hope the teams would not try and cheat. Simon says, I guess that we'll find out the extent of any overspend on Wednesday. If you're, I'm trying to think, I think you might be referencing last Wednesday when we were supposed to find out what we found out today, so I think you might be confused there. Because the information that's come out today is, what do you call it? Is, the information that we should have found out on Wednesday. Junior says that's the whole point of introducing the cost cap, because bigger teams spent a lot to develop their cars because they can afford to. This cost cap was introduced to stop that. Turbo says, yeah, and Ferrari and their illegal 2019 engine should be banned and stripped of all points that year. That was garbage. That includes Vettel and Leclerc's wins that year, maybe 19. It was, yeah. It was 2019. And yeah, in hindsight, looking back, they should have been stripped of... I think they should have been stripped of the Constructors points for sure. And basically disqualified from the championship, but the FIA did their little, secret backdoor deal, which was just, yeah, so wrong on so many levels. Haribo says the FIA has always been afraid to punish. A lot of cheats never get punished, like the Ferrari engine. 2007 Spygate was a big one, 100 million fine. Schumacher has been last, I think, as a driver. Yeah, the last one to get disqualified, I think, from the championship was Michael Schumacher in 97. But as you said earlier, that was due to him, deliberately driving into Jacques Villeneuve in that final race in Jerez. Let me just scroll to the current comments. Actually, let me go up a bit, because there's still some other very good comments I can see. Oh god, there's a lot of good comments, actually. I shouldn't have scrolled down as much as I did. God, there are so many good ones. Right. I basically scrolled back to where I was. So keep those comments coming, guys, because I'll keep going through them. Jay Keane says, I mean, where I work, there's an annual budget broken into departments that's monitored by our finance department. It's not that complicated. Yeah, that's why I hope that it'll be, easy for the FIA to, to know exactly what the overspend was on. But, yeah, my fear out of this, is that the FIA will not act properly. Menace says, championship needs to be taken away. These people are cheaters. Jay Keane says, you can't just not know where the money went. Shouldn't need to take time to answer if the books were managed correctly. That's the thing, though, is what if they weren't, or what if they maybe did some, sneaky things? You don't know. They might have done some sneaky things with the, what do you call it? Either, the accounting, I guess you could say. I'll be honest, when it comes to all that accounting stuff, I am not really that intelligent at all when it comes to it. So do bear with me when it comes to that. Lawrence says, I'd say disqualified from the Constructors. That's hundreds of millions in prize money taken from them. Cost cap reduction for next season, so they have a disadvantage like the others in 2021, or had in 2021. That evens it out. Yeah, what I would do, if you're going to disqualify them from the Constructors' Championship, what I would do is take the money they would have got or have already got from the Constructors' Championship and divide it evenly amongst the rest of the teams. That would be, I think, fair to give the other teams, an extra how many $1 million. And then once you split it, then you can raise the cost cap for those teams to an extra how many million and keep Red Bull a bit lower. That'd be a proper punishment. Aaron Reynolds says, that's cool, but they had to rebuild the car. But how many times did Haas have to rebuild their cars? And yeah, that's the thing with the whole, maybe it was Hamilton's crash with Verstappen. Haas F1 had loads of crashes last year. Loads of crashes. So it's not like Red Bull are the only team to have a big crash in 2021. So yeah, let's not pretend like that's a thing. And also, I know the rumor is it's catering behind the as the actual possible reason, which I don't believe at all. Are we going to pretend like every other team doesn't also have catering? Like, what's going on in Red Bull catering for them to overspend by possibly 1 million or more? That's what I mean. It's ridiculous. That type of if that's what it was. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I don't believe it, because it's too ridiculous to be true in my view. Joel says, I think next year someone will need Michael Massey back. Jay Keane says, I would simply reduce their cap for next season by the amount they overspent by. That'll have implications for them for a couple of years with reduced development. That wouldn't be enough of a punishment, because, I mean, yeah, if it's 1 or 2 million less, then, yeah, they're still going to be right at the very front of the grid. It's going to make, like, maybe a slight difference, to be honest. Yeah. Count Blast says, and good to see you, mate. Obviously, long time sub. As Red Bull should be hit where it hurts, driver championship points, but they won't do it again. Or bet they won't do it again. Or Andreas says 30-second penalty per $100,000 fine or 1 million fine. Is that? I can't. How many zeros is that? I think 100,000, possibly. Yeah, my reading. I can't see the zeros that great there, so I can't see how many there is. Yeah, from the race that cost cap was breached for the left races back at a grid start. We'll see, possibly. Pete Dunn's pretty soon the team accountants will be the highest paid team member. Punctured Bull says must be heavy. I stripped of points, only fair. How many more decisions will go in Max's favour? Has he got friends in high places? Well, Michael Massey, I guess, was one, because he did say he was kind of mates with him. So he had him, but obviously he's gone. But, I mean, there's been a couple stewards that have been, I wouldn't say mates with Max, but there has been a certain British one that has a Honda, or owns, I think, a Honda car dealership, which is Derek Warwick. He used to race in F1 back in the 80s and 90s, I think, as well. Catus Phoenix, cost cap was breached on Latifi's unlimited supply of Red Bull. Right, let me find some other comments here. Santiago says other teams will just increase their catering budgets if Red Bull is stripped of the title. Sparky Pete says they aren't taking points off Max license. He got an advantage last year and this year because he had more, or they had more to spend on 2022 car development. Homologation now. They'll keep advantage until 2026 now. Off Driz United says, Chaz, a minor or major breach. Red Bull's car last year affected the cost cap. Mercedes haven't done anything in 2021, so why is it fair Lewis Hamilton doesn't get his title? With Red Bull improving. I'm not saying it's not fair. Yeah, I'm not saying it's fair that Lewis Hamilton doesn't get his title. It's just, again, it's a personal, my personal feeling on it is that the driver, when a team has committed a breach of the cost cap regulations like this, I don't think the team, I don't think the driver should be punished because they are not responsible. That's just my personal preference. But like I said, objectively, there is no right or wrong answer to that. It's down to personal preference. There'll be plenty of other people that think, you know, Max and his points should be took away. And if they think that, fine. But yeah, there's no objective truth, I would say, in regards to that. Ismail says, funny how people don't give a damn when teams cheat with engine and stuff, but when it comes to money, people are freaking out. Get the fuck out of here. Karen says, surely the FIA should ensure everything is transparent and okayed before the season start. If Red Bull is found to have overspent, then points should be deducted. Simple. Sparky Pete says, Max had an advantage with his car. It's not his fault. So saying if they take driver points, it's his fault. No, it isn't, but he had an advantage. So you have to take the driver points and constructors. Okay. Let me find some other comments here if I can. Off Driz says, Chazza, it doesn't matter if they overspent and Mercedes didn't. And what does that tell you about 2021? Championship gap in Abu Dhabi was nothing. I mean, yeah, Mercedes didn't overspend and Red Bull did, but I want to wait till more information comes out, to be honest. Turbo says 2019, not DAS. It was work they did in the summer. I'll have to look back. I can't remember, to be honest, at the time hearing about that, but I must have missed it if it did happen. Junior says Lewis was disqualified for a 0.2mm gap on his rear wing. Red Bull cheated and had an illegal car because they breached the cap. What's going to happen? I mean, it's different, those type of incidents, but I completely understand your frustration. Michael Panzers asks, do you think because of the rain stopping and restarting the race that drivers should have been awarded half points instead of full points? Well, I'm pretty sure. My thought was that in terms of points being awarded, it's dependent on how much of the race percentage-wise, how many laps of the scheduled amount of laps, which was supposed to be 53 yesterday. My thought was it was supposed to be, if it's, say, only half of the race, or about half of the race has only been completed, which I think it was yesterday. They did about, I think, 26 laps it was in total, which is, I think, one lap under half. My thought or guess was that it was supposed to be half points, but clearly not. FIA has only two options: come down hard on Red Bull by taking away 2021 and 2022 driver and team championships and keep the cap, or slap on the wrist with a fine and lose the cap and the whole paddock. Just Freddie Thailand says FIA sounds very corrupt, making excuses for teams which had budgets. Chris Pedrosa said teams would be dumb not to have budgets set aside to deal with crashes. Yeah, I agree. Collins says the future of Formula 1 is at stake. The offence from Red Bull is unacceptable. Hence, a severe punishment must be issued by the FIA. Whatever happens, Max is a great driver. Philip King says if the reprimand is just a fine, then all the teams will breach the cap and get a slap on the wrist. That's what I said a week ago. If it's, again, a few $1 million or even just $1 or $2 million overspend, then what's stopping Mercedes spending an extra $7 million, which would still be classed as a minor overspend? What's stopping that happening? And if Mercedes spend an extra $7 million purely on car development, then, you know, Mercedes would gain a ridiculous amount, and so would Ferrari and all the other teams. So, yeah, that's why I said quite a long time ago now, because I've read out so many comments so far. I've already been going over an hour. That's why I said earlier, this is such a vital moment, because if the punishment is weak, then yeah, I given what happened yesterday at Suzuka and then this situation, what do you call it? Yeah, given yesterday and this situation, I mean, F1 could literally spark into civil war with the FIA at this point, given how the FIA are handling things. So, yeah, it's a real big moment these next few weeks. Let me see if I can find some other comments. Just to let you guys know, I am only going to read out probably another 10 minutes of comments, because I have been reading comments, I think, already for like 40 odd minutes. So I'm not going to, go on forever all night reading comments on this certain situation, because I do have a couple other things to get into. So yeah, I'm going to read probably another 10 minutes of comments, and then we'll get on to the next topic, which is the Pierre Gasly tractor situation. So, yeah. I mean, I will keep reading comments after I do my Gasly topic. And also when I do my final topic, I'll, still be reading some comments out. So make sure to keep them coming in the chat. But, yeah, I'm not going to get to all of them, unfortunately. Timothy says it doesn't matter what they spent on, as then what teams would do is classify costs as catering when they intentionally divert the original catering budget to parts. Is there not a way, though, that the FIA can actually find out if that is, indeed catering? Like, is there not a way the FIA can officially find out where that money went? I'd be curious to know, but yeah, it's a tricky situation. Right, let's find some other comments here. There's so many to get through. Butterfly Blue Shorts says the teams were already given leeway of 5% for the first year of the cost cap. I wouldn't be following the hype. F1 is turning into a circus. I don't remember that being the case. I don't remember the teams being given leeway to go at 5% over. Maybe, what do you call it? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were, but I don't remember that being said unless I missed unless I missed whatever or whenever that was announced, sorry. Count Blast says if everyone except Red Bull met the budget, I say it's Red Bull always trying to be more clever than everyone. Polish Eddie says Helmet and Christian need to do 50 hours of community service each. They need to be punished. And Yoss be banned from the paddock, just saying. Right. Let's see how many other comments I've got here. Alright, I'm going to try and read out, I think, these final few, or not final few, but the latest comments in the chat, because, yeah, I need to try and keep up with what you guys are saying. Off-Driz says, also, why are the FIA scared to tell us how much money and Red Bull breached the regulations? FIA have loved Red Bull in 2021 and 2022. You never know. FIA may lie about Red Bull results. I don't think that's going to happen, because you can guarantee all the other teams will want to know, how much was the overspend, and they'll want transparency from the FIA. So I don't think the FIA are going to lie on Red Bull's behalf. I don't believe that the FIA are in tandem with Red Bull in this secret partnership to make sure that Red Bull win. Minky says Max is such an impeccable driver. It's unfortunate that his team behaves like they don't believe it. Finn de Jong says, I don't think it'd be right to take Verstappen's championship, but I think in that sentence they should probably remove Red Bull from Constructors title. Yeah. I personally agree, but we'll see what they think. Off-Driz United says, Shazza, how can you watch F1 right now, dude? Lewis Hamilton's put blood, sweat, and tears into 2021 and got robbed. I don't understand how fans can watch this. It really blew my mind. I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan, so I can watch F1 just fine. I know, what happened with the final lap in Abu Dhabi was wrong, but let's not pretend like that's the first big wrong thing the FIA have done in regards to their policing of Formula One. They've done plenty of other wrong things. So let's not pretend like that's the only injustice in F1 history, because it's not. Also, let me just read out the rest of your comment to respond to other bits of it as well. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton did put blood, sweat, and tears in. Everyone does. That doesn't make him any different from anyone else. And yeah, got robbed. Again, other drivers have been robbed in the past due to FIA decisions or steward decisions, race control decisions. So yeah, let's not pretend like it's a new thing. Drivers have been penalised in the past wrongly and been cost titles by the FIA. Look at Ayrton Senna, for example. That's the best example to look at in 1989. Was disqualified, I think, was it from the race and the championship for something that was, looking back, so fucking minor, for using an escape road incorrectly. Wasn't that what it was? I would say that is worse than what happened to Lewis Hamilton. And that was just, what happened with that was clear evidence of of corruption, because the person who run the FIA wanted Alain Prost to win the title that year. So I would say that's worse than what happened to Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, I get your frustration, but let's not pretend again like that it's the first time that we've had that type of situation happen. And yes, Senna, just looking, was disqualified for getting a push start from the marshals to rejoin the circuit, handing the title to Prost. And yeah, his official reason, it says on Wikipedia, was rejoined track illegally. And then if I go to the 1989 standings, I'm pretty sure he was disqualified from the championship as well. Was he not? Oh, no, he wasn't. I thought he was. No, he was only disqualified from that race. Sorry, I was wrong about that. But, if you look at that situation, that was wrong. But, unfortunately, it happened. I'm trying to look at his Wikipedia to see see a bit more details into that incident again. And yeah, so he was disqualified for receiving a push start. Can't remember if his engine was still running. I think the rules at the time was your engine had to be running if you were to get a push start. Cutting the chicane after the collision, and for crossing into the pit lane entry, which was not part of the track. And then in the winter of 1989, he had a massive fine and a temporary suspension of his super license. So, yeah, I would honestly say that was worse. I'm not saying that Lewis Hamilton, what happened to him was not that bad. It was bad, don't get me wrong, but let's not pretend like it was the only injustice in Formula 1 history. Because again, it wasn't. Finn de Jong says, I would assume that the teams would have to submit the receipts, for example, so they can know if they spent, I don't know, more on ham. Ewok says, yes, check Michael Massey's bank accounts. Minky says, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. Watching F1 has become like WWE, just fun, fake competition. I remember, actually, I used to say this about the difference between Formula 1 and Formula E. I used to say that Formula E is like WWE wrestling and Formula 1 is more like Olympic wrestling, even though, F1, even back a few years ago, still had, some artificial elements like DRS, for example. But yeah, the way F1's heading, it's going literally from like Olympic style wrestling to WWE wrestling, and I don't like it at all. We're getting 3 more sprint races next year as well. So, and when I mean 3, I don't mean another 3 sprint races. It's going to be 6 next year in total, but 3 extra ones compared to this year. So yeah. The way F1 is heading is not good, in my view. Bravamore says, I miss Massey. Turbo says, I agree, Chaz, with Senna losing the race, even though he finished first, he lost the title, but had he kept the race when he would have won the title, at the end of the race, everyone thought Senna had won. Yeah. Well, the way that whole situation, what do you call it? How it all worked out was, or played out was ridiculous. I mean, you can obviously go view the Senna film, which really gets into it well, but yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. Punctured Ball says, man, this is a great pod. Thank you, no problem. Polish Eddie says, then in his defense, people showed video of other people cutting that chicane during other races and they were never disqualified or penalized. That was, yeah, that's in the Senna film where Ron Dennis shows, I think, like a Williams from a few years before, like doing a 360 through a chicane and then getting going again and didn't get disqualified. So yeah, it was so wrong what happened. If that happened today, I mean, obviously we had, you know, the Abu Dhabi thing, and that was really toxic on Twitter in terms of the amount of people fighting with each other and the amount of people that were, you know, saying, oh, this is so wrong, and it was. If what happened to Senna happened today, I don't even want to imagine what the social media reaction would be. Because with the Michael Massey thing, I don't think it was due to Michael Massey and F1 and the FIA wanted Red Bull to win the championship. The reason that happened is because I think Michael Massey, and there was definitely that pressure, but they didn't want the championship, no matter who was on the fresher tyres in second, whether it was Hamilton or Verstappen. They didn't want the championship to end under a safety car, even though, even though it should have. That's why he did what he did. Not because he wanted Verstappen to win the title, it's because they didn't want, and he didn't want, the title to end, or the title fight to end under a safety car. But with the Senna thing, I think it's pretty clear to see that was corruption and that he was literally disqualified because the president of the FIA wanted Prost to win, and he had the reason, or not, he didn't have the reason, but he had enough armour to disqualify Senna and be fined from it. So yeah, if that happened today, the reaction would be incredibly bad, and so it should be if that ever does happen again. Junior says, no, it is the only injustice in F1. Which other driver's been robbed a championship before? You're exposing your biased hate for Lewis, the greatest of all time. Jesus fucking Christ. I literally just said Ayrton Senna, 1989. Go and watch a Senna film and you'll see what I mean. And yeah, you could argue, well, that's from Senna's perspective. Even if you go and look at news reports and watch the Grand Prix at the time, it's so obviously bullshit what happened to him. So, yeah. Half says, so you're telling me Lewis was the better man last year? Now, that's different. I mean, Lewis, objectively, from a rules standpoint, he should have won the championship last year if the race director applied the rules correctly. But in my opinion, I thought Max Verstappen was the better driver last year. But that's my opinion. In regards to the actual results and how the rules should have been applied, Hamilton should have won the championship. Again, objectively. But in my view, I thought Max was the better driver in 2021. Massa was robbed in 2008. That's the thing as well. I mean, it wasn't a direct, to affect Felipe Massa. But Felipe Massa was robbed of the 2008 championship because of Crashgate, which was, Renault telling Nelson Piquet to crash on purpose to aid Fernando Alonso's race result, and that affected, what happened with the pit stop. And I know people may say, well, maybe that would have happened anyway under normal conditions, but I think Massa would have gone probably a few more laps into that Grand Prix. Plus, when he made his pit stop, he wouldn't have had, or the Ferrari mechanics wouldn't have had as much pressure making that pit stop, and I think that definitely would have helped a lot. And he was comfortably leading that race, Massa, in Singapore until that happened. So yeah, there's another example as well. Chris Pedrosa, wasn't Red Bull advocating to increase the budget cap this year? That was for the inflation, and they did increase it. I can't remember how much by. It wasn't just them complaining. I think it was Ferrari and Mercedes, I think even. I think McLaren were as well. So yeah, it wasn't just them. Polish Eddie said, I started watching F1 in 1997, but recently went back to 1970 and rewatched every season review. Also, my dad told me about Senna and stuff when I was a kid. Yeah, I've seen a lot of season reviews as well. Even though I'm quite young, I'm 24 years old. I've watched so many season reviews of F1, even the ones from the 70s as well, because I love, obviously, F1 that much. But, Brother Moz asks, Kaz, have you ever thought of doing an actual proper podcast on the actual Apple/Spotify platforms? Well, me and Niblo, we had one going for, what, a year and a half, I think it was. And I think we stopped it because I had my, whole depression episode, and we just haven't restarted it since, and we're both in different places. I mean, maybe we could do a podcast again, but and then, put it up on Spotify, but I'm not sure it would be that feasible, to be honest, because, yeah, I mean, I've got uni at the minute. I've only just started what's going to be at least a 3-year course. And then, I don't know what, I think Nib might also be at uni as well and busy with other stuff. So, yeah, not sure it'd be as possible now, but if I had the time, I'd be absolutely open to that. Turbo says, hold on, says, I agree, Kaz. Massey wanted a title fight for the last lap. Mossy, Jesus Christ, Massey wasn't corrupt. Polish Eddie says exactly, they wanted the race to finish under a green flag. I mean, and yeah, what Michael Massey did was so wrong. As Toto Wolff said, he was so wrong. But I mean, you can understand it from the commercial side and Liberty Media side. They desperately didn't want the championship to end under a safety car, and the pressure was definitely there for Michael Massey to get the race underway again. But yeah, from a rules perspective, what happened was wrong. But I see it so much on Twitter, and I understand why, because a lot of it's from Lewis Hamilton fans who are still pissed off, which, again, I totally get. But I don't think, again, that Michael Massey did it because he's secretly a massive Red Bull fan. I just don't think that's the case. Because, wasn't it the race before in Saudi Arabia give Max a penalty? And then, I think, was there an earlier race he gave Max a penalty? Can't remember exactly. But I know the race before in Saudi Arabia that he gave Max a penalty. So, it's not like he never punished Max Verstappen or Red Bull. Simon says, yet to see if Red Bull have broken the rules for 2022, yet it is becoming very interesting. If Red Bull believe that they were correct for 2021, then, yeah. Right, let me see if there's any other final comments on this subject. Sorry, I'm just reading something from Rooksfoot saying, or responding to someone that he's held their message for review, saying, you are clearly a new viewer. If you think Chaz is a Max fanboy, check the back catalogue. Let me just see what he said. Yeah. Normally the people that say that are new viewers, to be honest. But anyway, but cheers, guys, for those comments. And make sure to keep them coming, because I will come back to you guys in the comments section. Or not the comment section, the live chat. I will come back to you guys for more comments. But again, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And if you're watching, I always make that mistake. If you have not hit the like button already and you're watching, make sure to do so. I think I still fucked it up there saying it, but yeah. If you're watching, no, not if you're watching. What? Oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm so tired. For everybody that is watching, there you go. Make sure to smash the like button. There you go. The reason, if you're wondering why I was getting a bit mad with myself, is because I kept saying, if you're watching, of course you're watching, if you can hear me. But, right. I'm going to have a drink of water, I think, and then we're going to get into this Pierre Gasly topic. Now, this Gasly topic, I am going to be recording, and it's going to be uploaded on the channel tomorrow. So, yeah, just letting you guys know about that, because, yeah, I'm going to be doing it in a, obviously, different way to how I did the Verstappen, or not the Verstappen, the Red Bull cost cap thing. So, yeah, I'm going to quickly mute my microphone, have a drink, make sure my throat's in a bit better shape, and then we'll get cracking straight into it. Right, there you go. Should hopefully be a bit better. And yeah, we'll get into it. So what I'm going to get into is really what happened, and get into you know, the why the FIA was wrong for doing what they did, you know, putting the tractor out on the circuit. I'll also be getting into the what do you call it? The Jules Bianchi report that they did at the end of 2014 after his sad crash that, you know, basically caused his death, and getting into, I guess, the hypocrisy of the FIA. And then I will also be getting into Pierre Gasly and how he was given a 20-second penalty, which is basically, I think in the actual FIA document, it says a drive-through penalty, which accounts to 20 seconds for speeding under the safety car or under red flag conditions. But I think that was at a later point in the circuit, so I'll also, you know, get into that. But let's just get, I think, straight into it. So guys, at the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix, we had a very scary situation where after Carlos Sainz's crash, we had a tractor and crane come out on the circuit, and it was clearly wrong, and plenty of the drivers, and all of the drivers actually, and pretty much the whole F1 community really came down on the FIA for that. So what we're going to be doing in this quick video is looking at, you know, what happened, and getting into also the Jules Bianchi report, what the FIA had to say on this whole tractor business from years ago, and Pierre Gasly's penalty from later on in the lap where he sped past the tractor. Now, let's first, like I said, get into why the tractor actually came out on circuit. So on the first lap, Carlos Sainz obviously aquaplaned on the exit of the hairpin and went into the barriers. Quite a big crash, and he was very lucky, Carlos, to not be hit by the pack coming through. Very, very lucky. If his car was, say, a few inches further forward and more in the middle of the track, then he would have got hit big time by someone, and it would have caused a massive pile-up, not just for whoever hit him, but also cars behind. And yeah, visibility was quite poor at the time. But let's get to when Gasly came past the tractor that was trying to take away Carlos Sainz's car. So you can see here, this is the onboard from Gasly. Now, I know it looks very, you know, the quality of the image is not great, but that is actually what the onboard camera looked like. And I think it's not even a theory. I think it's confirmed true by actual drivers that what they can see through their visor is worse than the onboard camera. So if this is the best they can, or you can see through the onboard camera, just imagine how bad it is through Pierre Gasly's eyes looking through the visor. So he's coming through basically where Carlos Sainz spun off and had his accident. And then if we come to the second image, if you look in like the middle top left, so not top left, but the top of the middle left-hand side of the screen, you can just about see the tractor there. And again, if the onboard camera can only barely pick it up, Pierre at this point, which I don't think actually he would have been necessarily concentrating on that part of the track, just to the left of him, even if he saw it or looked in that direction, I don't think he really would have seen it until he really got close to it. But yeah, at this point, you can only barely see the tractor. And then as he comes past, you can see it in a bit more detail, but again, it's pretty hard to see. And again, from Gasly's point of view, he probably would have seen it briefly, but he wouldn't have really known for sure before and as he was passing it that it was a tractor. He probably knew as he had just gone past and had a look in his mirrors that there was a tractor. If he did see as he was passing, it would have been, you know, more of a guess, I guess you could say, because of how poor the visibility was at Suzuka at the start of the Japanese Grand Prix. And when you actually look at where Gasly is on the track and where the tractor is actually quite close to where Pierre is. Pierre's in like the middle or right-hand side of the middle of the track. The tractor, if you actually go and look at maybe a clearer image online, the track or the tractor is like half on the circuit and half on the grass. That absolutely should not be happening. If you're going to have the tractor at all out there, firstly, there shouldn't be any cars going around at the same time as the tractor's on track. But it shouldn't be on this side of where Carlos Sainz's car should be. It should be on the other side to be as far away from where the cars are. But again, the cars should not be on the track at the same time there is a tractor trying to collect a car. You know, we saw what happened, unfortunately, with Jules Bianchi in that very sad incident at the same track, only a few corners after this, back in 2014. We saw what happened with that, and I'm going to just quickly get onto the Jules Bianchi accident report and, you know, look at, you know, what the FIA had to say in regards to this incident. And I'm going to try and get it opened up on my internet, or not on my internet, but on my browser. But the FIA website, annoyingly today, has been quite slow, which is really, really annoying. I think it's because everyone's been trying to search for the whole cost cap thing. So I'll try and have a few goes at getting it up. But for some reason, it isn't coming up, which is not good at all. And yeah, it just won't come up for some reason. So I actually just stopped the recording there, guys, because obviously the recording there is now going to be fucked. Because I'm having to wait for the actual accident report thing to load up, and it just won't load up. If anyone has actually tried viewing the FIA website today, it's been horrendously slow. It really, really has. Let me try it in another way quickly. Oh no, not that way. Let me just, right. Let me try and do it this way and see if it works. And yeah, the FIA website today has been so slow for some reason. Because I've seen other people on Twitter complaining about it. So yeah, that's not good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to these pictures and let me see if I can get the other one up. The Pierre Gasly penalty thing. Can I get that up? Yes, I can. That's good. Right. I'll just throw it up on screen for you guys quickly. So this is the steward's report document. So yeah, Gasly, speeding under red flag conditions, breach of Article 57.2. And the decision was drive-through penalty imposed after the race, 20 seconds added to the elapsed race time. 20 seconds is about what it would cost you if you did a drive-through penalty. And then the reason behind their decision was the stewards heard from the driver of car 10, Pierre Gasly, and team representative, and reviewed video and telemetry. Sorry, I'm going to say telemetry. Evidence after passing the scene of the incident. Car 10 continued under the red flag situation at speeds which exceeded 200 kilometers an hour on multiple occasions and which reached 251 kilometers an hour at one point. The driver conceded that he now understood that there could have been marshals or obstacles on the track and admitted that he was too fast. However, in mitigation of penalty, we take into account that although the speed could not by any measure be regarded as slow as required in the regulations, it was slower than the maximum speed that could be achieved under these conditions. We also take into account the shock the driver experienced seeing a truck on the racing line in the corner of the incident. Competitors are reminded that they have the right to appeal, and that's it. So yeah, so he was penalised for speeding under the red flag at multiple points of the circuit, and those multiple points I think were, later on in the lap after he'd actually seen the truck. I'm actually just deleting all of this stuff now because I'm pretty much done with all this. I'm going to try and have another go quickly, actually, at getting the report up. Yeah, the PDFs from the FIA website work fine. It's just the actual website, it's horrendous today. It just has not worked at all, which is annoying. But guys, let me know in the chat, what did you think of the Pierre Gasly situation with the tractor and all, and what do you have to say about, the tractor being on track and what the FIA and what FIA race control did there? Let me know in the chat and I'll get to your comments in a moment. I'm just going to quickly delete that, and I'm also going to delete the these three things I showed earlier. The reason I do this, if you're wondering, is to make the stream run quicker. But before I go on to your comments in the chat, I'm just going to quickly go over a couple other things, and then I'll get to your comments in chat. So, Max Verstappen yesterday won his second World Championship. Congratulations to him. Obviously, we'll see more of this cost cap findings and what happens with penalties and that. But at the moment, he is world champion for 2022 and at the minute, a two-time F1 world champion. Now, there was a lot of confusion after the race, or just after the race, as to why they were saying he's world champion when we were pretty sure he was not. Well, let's get into the rules behind, race distances, and I'll quickly explain why he was, by the FIA standard, world champion. So, this is the part of the rules that references, the race distances and what you can do on award for each bit. So it says, 6.5, if a race is suspended in accordance with Article 57 and cannot be resumed, points for each title will be awarded in accordance with the following criteria. And it says, so A, no points awarded if the leader has completed less than 2 laps. B, in each case detailed in all of these, no points will be awarded. And when I say all of these, I mean all of the, points below. No points will be awarded unless a minimum of 2 laps has been completed by the leader without a safety car or VSC intervention. And then for C, if the leader has completed 2 laps but less than 25% of the scheduled race distance, points will be awarded in accordance with column 1 of the table. I'll get to the columns in a moment. D, if the leader has completed 25% but less than 50% of the scheduled race distance, points will be awarded in accordance with column 2. And then E, if the leader has completed 50% but less than 75, then the points will be awarded in accordance with column 3. And then F, if the leader has completed 75% or more of the scheduled race distance, full points will be awarded in accordance with Article 6.4. Now, obviously, yesterday, they didn't get to 75% race distance. I think they got to 50%. But the reason, and I'll just quickly show you the points columns, by the way, so you guys know. So, yeah, if we ever get another Spa 2021, it's only 2 laps completed, and those, for points column 1, that's what the point system would be. And then for points column 2, which I think would be for what, 50%? And then for points column 3, that'd be 75%. So, yeah. So we thought it'd be limited points, but it was not. So according to the FIA... so this rule says if a race is suspended in accordance with Article 57 and cannot be resumed, then points for each title will be awarded in accordance with the following criteria. But according to the FIA, because the race was resumed, then full points can be awarded. That's literally it. That's literally what they said. So the reason full points were awarded is because the race resumed. If the race never resumed again, then points column 1 would have applied. So Max would have had only 6 points, and then Leclerc would have took away 4, Perez 3, and then Ocon 2, and Hamilton 1, and everyone else would have not had a point if it never got going again after the red flag period. So yeah, that's what happened. But I expect probably a change to these regulations for next year to make it a bit clearer, because yeah, we were all mighty confused in regards to that. But, yeah. Joe Ty thinks that's bullshit. It is. It is such a on-the-fly thing. When I said just then that, that they said because it was resumed, full points can be awarded, I don't believe there's actually a regulation in the actual PDF that you can view on the FIA website if the FIA website wants to work. I don't think it's actually on the actual rulebook. I think it's just something they made up on the fly, pretty much. Again, summing up why the FIA is a complete fucking joke. But, right, I'm gonna now go back into some of your comments. So keep them coming in the chat, guys, and I'll get through a load more of them. Right, so Sawang says Red Bull spent 7 million to change girlfriend to Max from Danny. Turbo says some of these people on Twitter and Reddit act like they are the actual driver failing or succeeding. Yeah, well, there is definitely some mentally ill people in the F1 community, but there's mentally ill people in every community. We have to remember that. Ewok says, my view of this, all are at fault. FIA for releasing the machine on track while cars are driving around in awful conditions. Team and Gasly for not slowing down. Yeah, I mean, and we said it yesterday in the race watch along that, yeah, Gasly was going too quick, but let's not apportion blame and get into that whole blame game stuff, which I know a lot of people in F1 like to do. Even I'm guilty of it, to be honest. I've just received a super chat, though. Let me just quickly read that out. From Butterfly Blue Shorts for €5. Thanks for that, mate. And says, thanks for the content, Chazza. Thank you very much, and no problem. Right, where was I? Will Chan says, not expecting a tractor to come out on track. The same track. That's what makes it even more of a piss take. It's literally the same track where Bianchi was, basically killed. Because of that, because of that incident. And if Gasly had lost the car at that point, I don't even want to imagine, and I literally say that, I don't even want to imagine what would have happened. Would have been awful. Thank God, though, that nothing happened. Labgura says, race marshals and head of safety at Suzuka need to be massively reprimanded for that. The thing is, though, the tractor coming out, that is, that's that action is directed by race control, FIA race control, so it's their fault to start with, really. Darth Lord Raven says it's so simple. If these tractors or cranes come out the red flag the race in these circumstances, they have to. Many rules which led to stupid mistake. Yeah, if a if a tractor or crane comes out actually on the track, then yeah, there should be a red flag. It should be like an automatic thing. Now, I remember at Monza, I said that, the race ending under a safety car was the right thing, but when I said that, I don't think I realised that there was actually a tractor on circuit. So, yeah. In hindsight, there should have been. But yeah, when I made that comment, I didn't actually know, I don't think. Menke says, I actually had to rewatch it multiple times to see the tractor, so I can't even imagine how frightening it must have been. The best way to see it, if you go look at the onboard, is to watch it at speed, because it's easier to see that way. When you actually look at the still images, it is harder because of how poor the visibility is on the camera, but that's not because of the camera quality or the image quality. It's because of that's how bad the visibility was at that part of the day at Suzuka. Menke says, even if Gasly was moving a bit too fast, it shouldn't absolve the FIA of accountability for their own wrongdoing in this incident. Exactly. Labgura says, how much did Red Bull breach budget by? We don't know yet for sure. Hopefully we find out soon. And why is this waited until after the Japanese Grand Prix? My opinion is because, and we don't know for sure why, I think maybe they said why, but it's probably a bullshit reason. I can't remember what it was, but I think it's so it didn't affect, the title celebrations this Sunday. So it wasn't a massive cloud hanging over it going into the race, which wouldn't have made things any better. But, they should have published these findings a few months ago. We shouldn't be finding out in October of the following year. Rook. Chaz, telemetry is elementary, potentially. Turbo says, granted this year's budget reports haven't been submitted yet, I am under the assumption they cheated this year or so. Angel Reyes says 7.25 million is 5%. Yeah. I made sure to say that at the start of the stream, so everyone knew. Yeah, 5% is $7.25 million, which is, when you convert to pounds, is 5.75 million pounds, which if it was as much as that they overspent by, then their punishment has got to be big. But we will see. Labgura says, mate, if they use an extra 5%, then they develop their car far more than anyone else, and Red Bull tried to bite back and said they didn't breach at all. They cheated if this is confirmed. Again, we'll have to wait and see. Eric says, maybe things like penalties and points should be counted before interviews or celebration on the podium to avoid the awkward situation they put Max in yesterday. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a bit of a weird, funny thing that happened with that whole Senna thing in 1989. Is so when the race finished, Senna won the race on track, and then instead of going to the podium, Senna went straight to the steward's office, where it was like Senna, Prost, I think Belest, and all the stewards and all. And the podium celebration was delayed until the result of the stewards meeting. And then when it finished, the podium was a completely different one to what it should have been. Which would probably be better if it worked out that way. For all cases now. So we would have the actual real podium. But yeah, again, I don't think that's like an objective right or wrong thing that maybe, should happen. Angel Reyes says 5% is on the FIA website, but it crashed due to traffic. Yeah, that's why it won't load for me to get up this little article thing. Because, yeah, the FIA website has just been bombarded with visitors. Let me see if I can get it up again. No, it just won't come up. The FIA website is getting pounded, pretty much. Ruse, good to see you. I don't think you've been in the chat for a while. Says the cost cap was for last year. They won't certify this year until around the same time next year. Counting is hard, lol. Well, it shouldn't be this hard, surely. Hunter, does this violation cost Max his championship? Who knows? I mean, I think if you think it should, again, that's your opinion, but whether it actually will, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know why the FA is doing things so late in the year. It's almost over, and they're doing things this late. Yeah, they should have these findings published by like May of the following year. So this really should have been about 5 months ago. We should be finding this out, not in October of the following year when they've already started committing, spending and that to 2023. Let's see if I can find. I'm going to try and find, if I can, a couple more comments, and I think I'm then going to come to the end of the stream because I've been live for about 2 hours. Angel Rare said they breached you to giving their employees free food. I know that it's ridiculous. I don't believe that for a second. Driver points deduction is the only thing that will suffice. Well, if you're going to do a points deduction for the drivers, you got to do it for the constructors as well. You can't just do it for the driver. Plus, we'll give FIA an out from reputational damage it sustained last year. Polish Eddie going on about the, what do you call it, Lewis Hamilton bling thing, I think. The jewelry thing, which, yeah. I mean, technically, it's in the rules that you're not allowed to, so, I'll just have a look on Twitter to see if there's any more news I could bring you guys. And RBR, Red Bull Restaurant, I just saw from Arava on Twitter. Yeah, just trying to see if there's anything else. No, don't think there's any other news on Twitter, unfortunately. Wait, FIA really said free food was a penalty? No, that's just a rumour. We don't actually know the reason why they overspent and how much they overspent. We don't actually know, so we'll wait and see on that. But I don't believe it was due to catering and sick leave pay. That would be, yeah. I just don't think that's true at all. But one final thing we will get into, guys, is because obviously the Japanese Grand Prix happened yesterday. Let's get into the championship standings after the Japanese Grand Prix. So Max Verstappen, you can see there with a C on the first column on the left. He is officially Drivers' World Champion, 113 points clear now. Sergio Perez and out of reach. Perez now up to second in the championship, 1 point clear of Leclerc after obviously Perez was promoted up to second when Leclerc, I think, deservedly got the penalty he did. And then Leclerc finishing in, or not finishing, he's in third. George Russell pulled away slightly from Carlos Sainz. He's now 5 points clear as opposed to 1 point clear. Lewis Hamilton is still sixth, but he has closed the gap to the two ahead. And then Lando Norris is 7th, Ocon 8th, Alonso still 9th, Bottas 10th. In the bottom half of the championship, which I will show probably at the end of the season, I can announce that Sebastian Vettel is up to P11 in the drivers' standings, and he's only 14 points behind Bottas in P10. So Vettel might get a top 10 in the championship before the season is over. And on the Constructors' side, Red Bull leading by 165 points, I believe. And I think they might be able to win the title, the Constructors' title, at the next Grand Prix. Obviously, depends on what the FIA decide to do in terms of punishment. But yeah, that's the case at the moment. Ferrari currently in P2, and they're going to finish probably second, Ferrari, at worst, because Mercedes are now just too far behind in third. Alpine back into fourth, 13 points clear of McLaren in fifth. Alfa Romeo is sixth, Aston Martin seventh. Aston Martin closed the gap down to just 7 points now. That is a very important fight in the Constructors' Championship. So is the battle for 8th and 9th between Haas and AlphaTauri. They're currently locked on points, on 34 points to be exact. And Williams, obviously, Latifi scored 2 points for them yesterday, so they're up now to 8 points. But they are still rock bottom of the Constructors' Championship. But guys, I think I'm going to bring the stream to an end. Thank you guys for coming along for this stream. Just want to quickly let you know what the plan is content-wise. So the rest of this week, there will be there will be a video coming out towards the latter part of this week, probably Thursday, Friday. It's actually something I recorded before the Singapore Grand Prix. You may have actually been around for it. I did it during a stream a couple of weeks ago, where I predict the future of the certain F1 drivers for the next few years up until the end of the decade. That will be coming out at the latter part of this week, Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday. We'll have to see how it all shakes out. Yeah, that'll be coming out then. And then I am working, and I will be tomorrow, working on a video that I want to try and get out before the US Grand Prix. And that video is me going into detail about how Max Verstappen won the championship in 2022 and the reasons behind it and the key things that allowed him to become world champion. I will probably have to account for this cost cap thing as well, but yeah, that'll be coming out hopefully before the US Grand Prix. But that's not a guarantee. It might come out in between the US and Mexican Grand Prix, might come out after the Mexican Grand Prix. I'll let you guys know when it's ready. And yeah, it's ready when it's done, I guess you could say. And then yeah, for the US Grand Prix, I'll be live for the weekend preview on the Thursday of the US Grand Prix at 6 p.m. UK time. And then from 7:45 p.m. UK time all the way through till midnight UK time on the Friday, I will be live for Practice 1 and Practice 2, the Practice 1 and Practice 2 watch-alongs. Saturday, I'll be live from 6 p.m. UK time all the way through to 12:30 a.m. UK time. Firstly for the qualifying preview, then the Practice 3 watch-along, then a build-up to qualifying for a couple hours between Practice 3 ending and qualifying beginning. Then I'll be doing a watch-along for qualifying, and then a reaction to the session itself. And then on the Sunday, yeah, from 6 p.m. UK time, I'll be live all the way through till probably 11 p.m. UK time. And yeah, starting off with the race preview until 7:30 p.m. Then from 7:30 p.m. UK time until 10 p.m. will be the race watch-along. The race starts at 8 p.m. UK time, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. And then for an hour after the race finishes, I'll be doing a race reaction. So make sure to join me for that, guys. The US Grand Prix next weekend. And yeah, the next stream I'll be doing will be the United States Grand Prix weekend preview, where if there's been any updates in regards to this whole cost cap thing, then I will cover it in that stream, because I'm not really able to stream. I haven't really got the time, I would say, to stream between now and next Thursday, because I've got quite a few things on my plate. So, yeah, that'll be the next time I stream. Yeah, another video coming out this week, maybe a video coming out at the very start of next week, and then the US Grand Prix. Plenty of content heading your way. I think 15 plus hours of live stream content coming your way from the Thursday of the US Grand Prix all the way until Sunday night. Yeah, hopefully you guys can join for that. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for that content coming up. And for everyone watching right now, don't forget to smash that like button if you have not already before I go. And as well, follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. And don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description, if you want to keep up to date with the content on my channel. But guys, until that video coming out later this week, and hopefully a video next week if I can really get going with it. But until the next Grand Prix on my next stream previewing the 2022 United States Grand Prix race weekend, until then guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.